Wow. All my friends are from small town. Man. Well, hello, Window Rock. And to Ian, thank you for the beautiful introduction. Thank you for giving us hope in the next generation and the future of leadership that we've got. I want to start by experiencing a deep sense of gratitude to the Navajo Nation for having me on this land. I understand that it is a privilege to be standing here on Navajo land, and I am grateful that you would see fit to bring me here as we talk about and I try and ask and earn your vote to make Kamala Harris President of the United States. To President Nygren, thank you for your incredible hospitality, and thank you for this beautiful gift. I wear it with pride. Thank you. To former President Nez, make sure we send him to Congress. Make sure we send him to Congress. I also want to say thank you for having the wisdom on behalf of the entire country, on behalf of this entire country, thank you for sending a national treasure that's Mark Kelly to the United States Senate. We're grateful. Now you know there's some work to do. Give him a buddy there. Send Ruben Gallego there with him. And on a point of personal privilege, a phenomenal leader, a transformational leader, and someone that I am just incredibly proud to call a friend, Deb Haaland. Thank you, Deb Haaland. And to all of you out there, I want to give a special thank you to all the Navajo Nation veterans as we stand on this sacred park here. I want to recognize my fellow veterans in this. And I want to be clear to everyone, I think you can't say this enough. Native Americans have served this country in uniform in every major conflict for over 200 years. And this nation, the Navajo Nation, and the nation of the United States lost a treasure in John Kinzel Sr., one of the original Navajo code talkers. These flags are flying at half staff. He served in Guam, Guadalcanal, and Iwo Jima. And as a point of personal pride, I want to make note of this. Many of the Navajo code talkers received their training in St. Paul, Minnesota, is where they trained. So the connection to Minnesota and connection to the nation is strong. And I still want to note, Native people serve at a higher rate in our armed forces than any other population in the country. So on behalf of everyone in the United States, thank you for that service to each and every one of us. Now look, this is an amazing site on an amazing piece of land. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. You could be anywhere. You could be doing anything else, but you chose to come here because you understand that the democracy matters. Your love of the Navajo Nation and of the United States is strong, and your presence here is proof of that. Thank you. I'm here today because there's 10 days left till this election. Not that anyone's counting, right? But I also want to note we're here because we're not taking any vote for granted, and we're here to show the respect to the Navajo Nation and earn your vote. Now, I'll tell you, we're running like everything's on the line because everything's on the line. I'm proud to be on this ticket with Kamala Harris because it's pretty simple with Kamala Harris. She has had one client and one focus her entire career, the people. She stood up for women and children against predators and abusers. She stood up for seniors against fraudsters and big corporate interests. And she stood up for families and community against transnational gangs and drug traffickers. And here's the thing. When people came to Kamala Harris to ask for help, she never asked if they were a Democrat or Republican. She simply said, how can I help? How can I help? Now, usually I want to acknowledge this. You're no strangers to this. They maybe don't come out here, but you hear them on TV or you hear them in Gallup, you hear them elsewhere. It gets to be about election time, and politicians start showing up in Indian country asking for votes. And usually they come doing that and they haven't done a damn thing before to make you get that vote to them. I hope you've seen, and I hope we've proved it, that's not the case with Kamala Harris and myself. I want to be clear and make sure you hear it and that the country hears it. Kamala Harris and I recognize the promises this country has been made to indigenous peoples. We will safeguard and strengthen the bonds between our nations and uphold our trust and treaty obligations. The highest law is to honor tribal sovereignty, promote tribal consultation, and ensure tribal self-determination across this country. And you know, it's pretty simple, too. If tribal nations are doing well and your kids are doing well, the rest of the country's going to be just fine. As governor of Minnesota, I've been fortunate to work closely with our 11 sovereign tribal communities, including the Anishinaabe and the Dakota. And I will note, we run as a ticket in Minnesota, and my partner in this work, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, is a member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe. She will become this nation's first ever Native woman governor of a state when we win this race. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet with Governor Lewis and the Gila Band River Indian community, just as Vice President Harris did last year. And in our conversations with Native people across this country, I hear an overwhelming call, and one that taps into an idea of a fresh start, a new way forward, taps into the ambitions and dreams of all Americans. A new generation of leadership that is truly focused on improving lives, not creating chaos, fear, and division. Kamala and I know that a new way forward is what not just Indian country needs, but the rest of the country needs. We know you are focused on an economy that works for everyone by lowering cost. And every family gets a chance to not just get by, but to get ahead. First and foremost, taking on this issue of price gouging and food prices at the grocery store. Taking on corporate price gouging to make sure those prices are into this country. I believe he will do that. Kamala Harris gives you an option. 100 million Americans will see a tax cut, including, and I think this is the most important, a $6,000 child tax credit when your child is born in that first year of their life, to get them off to a good start. You got to buy a crib. You got to buy the car seat. You got to buy the diapers, and it's expensive. And we need to get them off to a good start. And we will protect the Affordable Care Act to so many of you, whether it's in the Indian health system or others. The Affordable Care Act makes sure that you can't be discriminated against for pre-existing conditions. And making sure that drug prices come down, finally. Can I just mention this issue around insulin? We have it for seniors now. Kamala Harris has promised that all Americans will see a cap on insulin. And we know that diabetes runs higher in Indian country, and it's unacceptable on these differences amongst wealth. We know it is unacceptable that Native women die in childbirth at a higher rate than others. It is unacceptable that life expectancies are shorter. We can do something about it. And on insulin, $35 to keep the cap on that. Here's the problem before. They were charging $800. And if people go off their insurance because they become 26, we had it happen in Minnesota. A young man named Alex Smith died because he was trying to ration his insulin. You know how much it costs to make a vial of insulin? $5. They'll do just fine getting paid $35. That's what it means to stop price gouging. And I think for a community that values your elders, what Kamala Harris put out finally, after all these years, asking Medicare to pay for home health care so our seniors can live in their homes, stay in their homes. And for goodness sakes, how we don't provide hearing and vision right now for our seniors. We've said that we're going to make sure they can get their hearing aids, they can get their glasses, and they can live their senior years with dignity. Medicare can pay for that, and we can make it work. And it means expanding telemedicine. Look, you know this. When you get more rural in where you live, it becomes harder to access. We need to make sure that we're training and we're incentivizing healthcare professionals to serve on the Navajo Nation, to make sure they're here, to make sure that when you dial 911 or you need to get help, that an ambulance arrives. There are too many places in America and too many tribal lands where there are no EMTs to respond to emergencies. That is unacceptable and needs to be fixed. And just to be clear, when Donald Trump says he will protect the health care, that guy tried his entire presidency. It's a good thing he's not so effective, and he failed at it. But he tried to repeal the ACA, ripping health care away from millions. You can bet, and I will tell you this, the only reason that millions of Americans have health care, the only reason that you can't be kicked off your insurance for pre-existing condition, the only reason your children can stay on that health care is because of the courage of one U.S. Senator, John McCain, said no to Donald Trump. Look, this guy proposed cutting services to IHS, you know that would endanger millions of families. Time and time again, Donald Trump had to do what was right for Indian country, and he chose the opposite. Kamala and I will make more affordable access to housing, make it more affordable for down payment assistance to families, build more affordable homes, and make sure that people have access because you have a dream that you want to start a business. Making sure there's money on the front end in the form of grants to start out and tax credits to small business owners so you can get started. And people, I get asked, how are we going to pay for that? Well, for starters, we could make Donald Trump pay his damn taxes that he hasn't paid for 10 years. I see ads running that they're worried about the IRS. The only people worried about the IRS are Donald Trump and tax cheats are trying to dodge paying, while the rest of us always pay our taxes. So look, those forgivable loans, making sure that we have no interest loans for tribal owners looking to scale up those existing businesses to make a difference. But I'll have to tell you this. For Kamala and I, most importantly, will be there when it matters. She was there to cast that tie-breaking vote that led to the single largest investment in American history, $32 billion in tribal economies that were devastated by COVID, and $13 billion for high-speed internet, roads, bridges, clean water. That Inflation Reduction Act and the COVID money was the largest investment this nation has ever made. And I want to be the first to tell you, if some of you are out there saying this, you should be. It's about damn time you started investing. It's about damn time the money started coming. So I want to be very clear. I do not expect a pat on the back that we did that. You should not get a pat on the back for doing the right thing. But what I'm telling you for is we've done it and we've delivered, and Kamala Harris will continue to deliver for Indian country when she's elected president. Now, protecting the land, restoring or expanding 10 national monuments. And you know these national monuments across your state here, those protect tribal homelands. She signed more than 200 co-stewardship agreements with tribal nations, knowing you don't need us to direct you how you take care of your land. You don't need gatekeepers in front of the way. You need the resources and the authority to do it yourself, and that's what those agreements mean. And when Donald Trump and the rest of them tried to take away Bears Ears Monument, many of those settling claims on water rights, all of the things necessary, trying to right past wrongs, I hear people say, well, we can't be responsible for what they did in the past. Well, we can sure the hell be responsible for how we expect to do it now and what we do about it. So look, something we did in Minnesota and she did at the national level, and we need to continue to expand, is we established a murdered and missing Indigenous relatives task force to make sure it's in, making sure the resources are there, and no longer finding it acceptable when Native people go missing and it doesn't even show up in the paper and resources aren't made to solve that, that is simply immoral and unacceptable. And by establishing that, we have to correct that wrong. And I know this doesn't come as a shock to you. I'm an optimistic guy, but I think it's important to understand. Donald Trump had a chance when he was president to show you that he cared. He had a chance to show you. He excluded tribal businesses from receiving pandemic emergency relief. He tried to remove most of Bears Ears National Monument. He made it harder for tribes to regain ancestral lands, and he even tried to de-recognize tribes. Look, that's what he does. And I want to be clear about this. It was those code talkers. He didn't have any gatherings of tribal leaders at the White House, but he wanted a photo op because Americans recognize the Navajo code talkers are heroes that are at the top of how Americans believe it. They're heroes. So what did he do? He took them to the White House and made them stand in front of a portrait of Andrew Jackson. I don't know if he knows his history well enough to know what he was doing, but I damn sure guarantee you the people around him knew the insult they were throwing to Indian country by making those heroes stand in front of that portrait. So just to be clear, Donald Trump showed his soul. And I want to be clear, he goes further than that. He has opposed expanding the opportunities for casino operations by our native lands. And when they were applying for licenses, Donald Trump testified in front of Congress and said they weren't truly Native American. Well, Donald knew. He looked at him and he said, they don't look Indian. And then he went on to say, he, Donald Trump, a direct quote, has more Indian blood than a lot of those so-called Indians. So his running mate once had a quote. He has a lot of these quotes. His running mate, J.D. Vance, said, you know, the thing that people don't like about Donald Trump is the racist part of him. Yeah, we don't really like that part of him, and he's done it time and time again. But I want to talk to folks here and be to the men here who are here. Look, you're hearing a lot about all the things that are in this election, and there's a lot of super important issues. But when you frame it up like this to the men here, think of the women in your life, the women that you love, sons, daughters, wives, moms, aunties, all the rest. You know who they are. This election is literally, their lives are at stake in this election. Their ability to get health care is there. Donald Trump's the one who put the judges in that repealed Roe versus Wade, and he brags about it. He calls it a beautiful thing. Now look, that beautiful thing that he talks about, that beautiful thing is women having complications in their pregnancy and going to a health care provider who says you need to have this procedure to save your life, and they can't provide that medical care because of Donald Trump's abortion bans in 20 states. So that means women are being denied care and having miscarriages in parking lots. It means survivors of rape and incest have no recourse. Those are the things that Donald Trump put into place. Those are the things that you can expect to come forward. And I just want to be very clear. He's not stopping with this. He's not stopping with that. He is going to do whatever is necessary to further the furthest extremist agenda, denying you the opportunity to access reproductive care, denying women the access to just basic health care. Those are the things that Donald Trump will try and do. So to each of you here, you know what's coming. You know what we need to do. You know it all too well that American Indian and Alaska Native women already die at the rates that are so unacceptable in pregnancy that this nation should be ashamed by the statistics. You know it. When Congress restores the right to Roe versus Wade, Kamala Harris will sign it into law, and we can attack these health disparities. We can make sure that every single Native woman gets the care she needs, and that the men here know the choice should be with you and your family on how those decisions are made. Now, I got them in my family. You might have them in your family. You know there's neighbors out there. Folks who say, yeah, I don't like Trump that much, but I got to tell you, we got through 4 years of him. We can again. That is dangerous. That is dangerous complacency. That is dangerous complacency. I appreciate the folks who have come out and are starting to talk. You know who's talking about Donald Trump being dangerous? those who know him best, those very people that he said he only hires the best and brightest, those were the people around him. Those people, as Kamala Harris said, are dialing 911 to the American public. This past week, the highest ranking military member in the United States, former Joint Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, said, I quote, Trump is the most dangerous person ever. Trump's own Secretary of Defense, a four-star general, said he agreed with Mark Milley. And earlier this week, another four-star general, John Kelly, Trump's former chief of staff, went on record and said, yes, Donald Trump is a textbook fascist, and he would be a dictator given the opportunity. This is a guy, and I think about this. Think about it here. Think about those who gave their lives protecting this nation from Nazi tyranny, protect this world from Nazi tyranny. Young men left the Navajo Nation and were sent around the world to protect people they will never know or never see, to give them the freedom to live as free people. That's what happened. And here's what Donald Trump said. Here's what Donald Trump said. I need the kind of generals that Adolf Hitler had. As a 24-year veteran, and to the veterans out here, that makes me sick as hell to hear this guy saying that. He disgraces every single person who wore the uniform, and he disgraces every single warrior that risked their lives to defend this nation against Nazism. And he said it to his generals. So look, he already controls the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said he can do whatever he wanted. All of us, when we were little ones in school, remember this? One of the things we learned early on is not a one of us is above the law. Nobody's above the law. That's no longer true. Donald Trump is apparently above the law. That's what the Supreme Court said. If this guy wins, he's going to appoint 3 more Supreme Court justices. 6 out of 9. 6 out of 9. So some of you here, gray hairs who are here, those of us, well, we're thinking, 10 years or whatever. This guy, in this election, is not about the next 4 years. It's about the next 40 years. It's not about this generation. It's about the next several generations. And Lord knows there is not a single Republican in Congress with the guts and the spine to stand up to him. I don't even know how these guys stand up without a spine, because they never say a damn thing. Now I want to close with this, because this is what it's about. We have an opportunity in the next 10 days to choose a different path forward, a path of kindness and decency and grace and vision and unity against all of those things. It's important to know who we're up against. And the good thing about Trump is he has damn sure told us who he is. And the people around him have told it. There is no excuse now to not know who this guy is. But I want to close with this, as I mentioned it. As your flags on your nation fly at half staff for John Kinzel Sr. He served on Iwo Jima. And some of you know that, one of the most bloody battles the Marines ever fought. They fought on that small rock in the middle of the Pacific, fighting against fierce Japanese opposition. And after that battle, the seas literally ran red with the blood of all of the young men who lied dead there. And they had to come up with and say a prayer over those bodies. And as they looked around, the only chaplain that was there happened to be the first Jewish chaplain. And there was discussions about, well, there's Catholics here, there's Protestants. There were indigenous members there, and there were black members there, who, at that time in America, couldn't even go into businesses because they weren't welcome. Couldn't drink out of the same water faucet because they weren't welcome. But there they were, giving their lives on that island to protect the freedoms for the rest of us. And Rabbi Roland Gittelshan gave what I think is ranked as, maybe along with the Gettysburg Address, the truest and clearest vision of what it means to be an American and to fight for this. And I ask you just, here's a small portion of what he said. As he gave that prayer, he said, "Here no man prefers another because of his faith, or despises him because of the color of his skin. Among these men who lie here, there is no discrimination, no prejudice, no hatred. Theirs is the highest and purest democracy." Folks, we've got 10 days. 10 days. Now, I believe hope is a powerful word. It's so powerful. When my wife and I were struggling to have a child and we were using fertility treatment, when we finally, years later, got that little girl, we named her Hope. Seemed appropriate. Thank you. And my wife is a very practical Midwestern woman who said, yeah, hope's a powerful word, but it's not a damn plan. We can't hope we're going to beat Donald Trump. We can't hope we restore reproductive rights. We can't hope that we don't turn the United States military against our own citizens. We can't hope that he doesn't become a dictator. We've got to have a plan. And you know what that plan is? To vote. To have a plan to vote. So look, if every one of us here, and you know how this works, go get that cousin who doesn't think he's going to vote, go over there, buy him a burger or something and take him over to vote. Get him out there to vote and say it matters. We need to make sure it matters who's in the White House. It matters who cares about sovereignty. It matters who cares about our children. So what we need to do is make sure you get that voter ID, make sure you know where you're going, make sure you know that you got to get your ballot back by October 29th here, drop it in the mailbox, get it out there, and then if you can, get another person or two. Because look, I'm talking to Mark Kelly over here, Senator Kelly, this thing is going to be razor close. There is a real possibility, and I think it might be more probable, if the Navajo Nation turns out the numbers that we know you can and do, that it won't just be Arizona that goes. It is entirely possible, and I think probable, that we win the whole damn thing because of the work that was done here, the work that's done on the nation, and we put Kamala Harris in the White House. So make that plan, get out there and do that. And I just say a couple things. I'm going to humbly ask you for your vote. And I'll ask you to go look at my record, look at Kamala's record. I'll ask you to go make the case that, look, there's two choices in this race. And the differences, you know, are huge. But the opportunity for a better, more pure, more higher democracy, as you heard on those sands of Iwo Jima, are a true possibility. So I don't take your votes for granted. I ask you to get out there. And look, there are so many good reasons that Kamala Harris will be an incredible president, and there's so many reasons Donald Trump shouldn't be. But I'm just going to tell you, I know it's a little bit petty, and I'm not usually a petty person, but I'm going to be here, is I just don't want to see Donald Trump's picture on TV anymore. I don't want to have to hear it. I don't have to see it. It is not healthy. It is not healthy to call people's names. It's not healthy to denigrate people. It's not healthy to divide us. So we've got an opportunity. So you know the word. The next president of the United States, Kamala Harris, says it all the time, and it's this simple. When we fight, we win. Now in the next 10 days, that turns into when we vote, we win. When we vote, we win. Let's go win this thing. Thank you all.